What if I told you, your bills aren't the problem? It's when you pay them. This was Kemi's reality. As a talented digital marketer in the heart of Lagos, she earned a good salary. On paper she was successful. But by the 25th of every month, the same cold dread would set in. Her account was always a ghost town, haunted by debit alerts and the looming anxiety of the next 30 days. Broke, in debt, and stuck in a cycle she couldn't escape. She glanced across the open plan office. There was Rita, her colleague. Same job title, same company, same salary. Yet Rita moved with a lightness Kemi hadn't felt in years. Just last week, Rita was excitedly showing pictures from a weekend getaway she'd taken. Kemi had spent that same weekend juggling which loan app to pay off first just to keep the threatening messages at bay. Why is my own different? Kemi whispered to herself, the familiar lament a bitter taste in her mouth. That afternoon, unable to shake the feeling, Kemi saw Rita packing her bag at the end of the day. It was now or never. Rita, hold on a sec, Kemi called out, her voice a little shaky. Rita turned with a warm smile. Hey, sup? Ready to battle that lecky traffic? Kemi gave a weak laugh. Always. Look, can I ask you something? And please don't feel like you have to answer if it's too personal. Of course, ask away, Rita said, her expression softening with concern. Okay, we're on the same level here, right? We earn the same, Kemi started, looking down at her hands. But I feel like I'm constantly drowning. I'm always broke. I see you planning trips, you're never stressed. How do you do it? Seriously, what am I doing wrong? Rita didn't look shocked or offended. She just listened patiently, then leaned against the desk. Let me ask you something first, Kemi. That beautiful salary alert that comes in on the 27th. What's the absolute first thing you do when you see it? Kemi blinked. The first thing? I mean, the responsible thing. I attack my bills immediately. I send my portion of the rent to the agent, pay my light bill, my data subscription, I pay down my Uber trips for the month and clear whatever I owe those loan apps. I have to get everyone off my back so I can have peace of mind and see what's left for me to actually live on. She expected a nod of agreement, a sign of shared struggle. Instead, Rita gave a small, knowing smile that Kemi couldn't quite decipher. I see, Rita said softly. So you pay the landlord, you pay the power company, you pay the tech companies. You pay everybody else first. Rita paused, letting her words hang in the air before asking the question that would change everything for Kemi. In that whole list of payments, Kemi, when do you pay yourself? Kemi frowned in confusion. Pay myself? What do you mean? The money that's left over after all the bills. That's for me. That's what I'm paid. Rita gently shook her head, her eyes kind but firm. No, that's the mistake we all make. That's not your pay. Those are your leftovers. And that's the fundamental difference between us. I decided a long time ago that the most important bill I have to pay each month is the one I owe to my future self. Rita had left the office with a polite smile, but Kemi's words had followed her home, clinging to her like the city's humidity. It wasn't just the question about money. It was the raw, undisguised panic in Kemi's eyes. The words echoed in her mind. Drowning, loan apps, get everyone off my back. Each phrase was a ghost from a life Rita fought every day to forget. The simple, confident advice she had given felt hollow now, incomplete. The truth was, her peaceful financial life wasn't built on a clever rule. It was a fortress built on the rubble of a catastrophic failure. Rita walked to a sleek bookshelf, knelt, and opened a small wooden chest. Inside, beneath some old certificates, was a faded, spiral-bound notebook. Its cover was simply marked, The Venture. She opened it. The pages were a chaotic testament to a disaster. Frantic calculations, names of lenders, and tear stains warping the ink. 3 years ago, Rita hadn't just been in debt. A failed fashion import business had left her with a debt so deep, it felt like a physical weight crushing the air from her lungs. That's where the rule had been born. Not in a moment of inspiration, but in a desperate act of survival. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, shaking her from the memory. It was a message from Kemi. As Rita read the screen, her expression softened. Hey Rita, sorry if I was too much earlier. But what you said, it's been stuck in my head. Pay yourself. I don't even know what that looks like. My entire salary is already spoken for before it even hits my account. It feels impossible. Rita looked from the phone screen to the open notebook, the monument to her failure. She knew Kemi didn't just need the rule. She needed to know why the rule was unbreakable. She needed the story. With a newfound resolve, she began to type. Don't you dare apologize, Kemi. You were honest. And your question deserves an honest answer. It's more than just a phrase for me. Are you free to grab coffee tomorrow morning before work? I think it's time I told you about a business I destroyed, the debt that nearly drowned me, and the real reason I learned to pay myself first. The next morning, Tuesday, October 14th, the air in the small Ikoyi coffee shop was thick with the aroma of brewing coffee and fresh pastries. Kemi sat at a small table, nervously stirring a sugar she hadn't added to her cappuccino. She looked up as Rita walked in, calm and composed, offering a reassuring smile. Morning, Kemi. Thanks for meeting me. Oh, thank you. After your message last night, I had to know. Rita sat down, taking a slow sip of the Americano she had ordered. She placed the cup down deliberately, her eyes meeting Kemi's with a seriousness that commanded attention. Rita, you see me now as a marketer. But 3 years ago I was going to be the next big name in fashion. I had a small but booming business importing high-grade attire and Ankara fabrics. I had a popular Instagram page, sales were great and money was flowing. Well, I never knew that. What happened? I made the classic fatal mistake. I saw revenue as my personal profit. The money from the business account flowed straight into my personal account. So I lived the part. I upgraded my apartment, got a newer car, was always the one paying for drinks with friends. But my business, the engine of it all, was starving for cash. Rita paused, her gaze drifting for a second as the memory returned. Then it all fell apart. A major shipment was seized at the Semeb border for weeks. A huge corporate client canceled their order, and just like that, the cash flow stopped. But the debts didn't. I had borrowed from everyone, the bank, my family, and, let's just say, less formal lenders who don't care about excuses. Oh my God, Rita. I was you, Kemi. But 100 times worse. I hit a point where I was selling my furniture to pay the interest on a loan. I wasn't just broke, I felt like a failure. That feeling of drowning you talked about. I was at the bottom of the ocean. Rita let the weight of her confession settle in the air between them. Kemi was speechless. The image of the effortlessly perfect Rita was shattering, being replaced by someone far more real and far more resilient. A friend took pity on me and got me the job at the agency. When that first salary came in, that blessed alert, every instinct in my body screamed to throw all of it at my mountain of debt. But then I had a moment of clarity. If I paid them all, I would be right back at zero. Powerless. A slave to my past, just waiting for the next salary to do it all over again. So what did you do? Kemi asked. I did the scariest, most illogical thing. Before I paid a single kobo to anyone I owed, before I paid for data, before anything, I opened a digital savings account. And I transferred 10% of my salary into it. Just 10%. It felt selfish, almost criminal, with all the people I owed. This was the secret. Not just the what, but the why. That 10% wasn't for shopping or enjoyment. It was my freedom fund. It was the first money that was truly mine. It was a seed. My creditors could have the harvest from my salary, but I was keeping one seed for myself. That single act, that small rebellion, gave me back a sense of control over my own life. Kemi, a look of dawning realization on her face. Well, you paid yourself, even when you were at rock bottom. Especially then. Being put together isn't about having no problems, Kemi. It's about having a system to overcome them. Your salary is your tool to build a future, not just to patch up the past. You must claim a piece of it for yourself first. That little bit you save becomes your power. It's the fund you'll use to pay off debts faster, to invest, or just to sleep at night knowing you have a safety net. It's how you stop being a slave to the 27th of the month. For the first time in years, Kemi felt a genuine spark of hope. It wasn't just advice. It was a strategy forged in failure and proven by success. So, when you get your salary alert next week, what's the very first transaction you're going to make? A transfer, to myself. 2 weeks passed. The conversation at the coffee shop echoed in Kemi's mind, a constant source of newfound determination. It was now Friday, October 27th. Payday. Kemi sat at her desk, the same desk where this story began. But she was not the same woman. She wasn't anxiously checking her account. She was waiting, poised like a runner at the starting block. Then came the salary alert. Her entire net pay sitting in her account. Immediately, the old voices of panic and habit began to scream in her head. The landlord's rent. The data subscription. The loan app that was already sending reminders. The pressure to clear her debts and be responsible was immense. This was the moment of truth. She took a deep breath, picturing Rita's face, not the perfect colleague, but the survivor who had pulled herself from the wreckage of a financial disaster. Kemi unlocked her phone, her thumb hovering over the banking app. She opened it and her eyes scanned the screen. But this time she ignored the pay bills button. She tapped transfer. She had already opened a new account with a digital bank, giving it a name that was both a reminder and a promise: the Seed Fund. She selected the account as the beneficiary, and with a steady hand she calculated exactly 10% of her salary. The number wasn't huge, but its meaning was everything. Her thumb hesitated for a split second over the confirm button. She pressed it. The transfer was instantaneous. For the first time in her working life, the very first person she paid was herself. A wave of something she hadn't felt in years washed over her: control. Only after securing her seed did she turn her attention to her bills. And a strange thing happened. Even with 10% less money, she felt richer. She wasn't just reacting to demands, she was executing a plan. She couldn't clear every single debt at once, but she addressed the most important ones, feeling empowered, not drained. She was no longer starting from zero. Later that day, she saw Rita by the water cooler. Their eyes met across the office. Kemi didn't say a word. She simply gave a small, confident nod. Rita saw it, and her face broke into a genuine smile of pride. A smile that said, "Welcome." The torch had been passed. Kemi had broken the cycle. She had taken the first and hardest step on the path to financial freedom. She had her seed. But as any farmer knows, planting a seed is not the same as reaping a harvest. The real challenge was just beginning. It wasn't just about saving the money, it was about making that money work for her. She had escaped the immediate prison of living paycheck to paycheck, but now she faced a confusing new world of budgeting, investing, and fighting the constant temptation to raid her savings for every small emergency. Breaking a habit was one thing, but building an empire, no matter how small, was another game entirely. Coming in part 2, does Kemi's seed of hope wither under pressure, or will she learn the second great secret of wealth: how to make her money grow?